Well, hello. Good evening, my brothers, and good evening, my sisters. This Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. And I want to greet you in the name of the Lord. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. I have a message. I have a message. I have a message. I have a prophetic word concerning the movements of the enemy, concerning the plan of your enemies, the plan of the enemies of your enemies. And I will say, if you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, lay back down, even though it's in the evening time, and as you're laying down, be grateful and say, God, I thank you. Even though things are not how you want them to be, but they're not how they used to be, and just say thank you. See, that's all. See, that's all it takes sometimes. That's all it takes sometimes. That's all it takes is just giving thanks. Because when you say, God, I thank you, what you're doing, you're saying, God, I'm grateful. God, I appreciate you, God. God, I bless you. God, I thank you for, I acknowledge you as being Lord and waking me up. Even though things are not how I want them to be, but yet and still, God, because of you, they're not how they used to be. And what I want to say is the title of this message, the title of this prophetic word is formed weapons. Formed weapons. There are weapons that have been formed. There are weapons that have been formed against you. Formed weapons. And let me give you a few examples. A few examples. One example. If you take in basketball, or in football, or in baseball, or in boxing, or whatever, before two teams meet, there's this preparation stage. And in this preparation stage, they watch a lot of film. And they study a lot of movements, behaviors, and tendencies and stuff like that on the other team weaknesses and strengths. And where the weaknesses are, they capitalize on those weaknesses. And so when it's game time, uh, the team that is able to capitalize on other team's weaknesses the best will win. Oftentimes, you got a team who got the star player, have a star player who's real good. What they will do, they will have a scheme for this one player, because what they'll do, they'll shut down this one player and make the other players beat them, but they're not comfortable being in that position. And so it's all strategy. It's all strategy. And let me tell you, in the game of in the game, not just in the game, but in the reality of war between countries, in the reality toward a war between nations, between tribes. When there is a war, before the war, weapons are prepared. Before the war, when there is before the war, but when you know there's one about to take place, there are weapons. There are certain weapons, strategic weapons that are formed. And in some cases, one of the things that I saw in my mind in this one particular war is almost like, the thing about it, before the war, the enemy will send spies, and those spies will survey the land, and will survey what's going on, will survey entrance, yeah, survey, what time they go to sleep, and oftentimes, most victories, or when the enemy will attack, it's usually when the other group or other people are asleep, unaware. And this is what's happened to many of you. The enemy has studied you, and the enemy has studied times when you're awake, but also the enemy has studied those times when you're asleep. And in those times when you're asleep, this is when and this is where the enemy will begin to work. The enemy will begin to operate. And see, think about it, even with spies, it's like in a house or in a location, in a certain area. And what I see cameras, surveillance cameras being put up. And the purpose of these surveillance cameras is to watch. and pay attention and notice, observe everything. Just like a stalker. A stalker will know what time that person goes to work, what that person does in the morning, what the time that person does at night, what time that person does in the evening. And the same thing in this case, the enemy has set up surveillance cameras. And the purpose of the surveillance cameras is to watch everything you do. And many of you that's talking to me, the enemy's been watching you. And the purpose of the surveillance camera, see, with the camera, also there's some advanced cameras that can also listen to sound, listen to conversations. And see what happens, the purpose of listening to conversations, the enemy will know how you think. The enemy will know how you feel. The enemy will know your weaknesses as well as your strengths. And so in many of your cases, this is what the enemy has done. The enemy has some kind of a wiretap or put up some type of surveillance around many of you, wherein he can listen to your conversations. He can know your movements. He can know your behaviors. And so the enemy has formed all of these weapons. He's formed all of these things against you that you're not even aware of. The enemy has been trying to listen to your conversation, been trying to listen to things about you, been trying to watch you, even when you were unaware. And now the enemy has decided to operate. The enemy has decided to execute what the enemy has seen on those surveillance tapes while you're asleep. And so what's beginning to happen, while the enemy has studied you and studied your behavior, and so now the enemy is coming for you, trying to get you. But what the enemy doesn't know is that God has set up an ambush. God has set up an ambush for the enemy. An ambush, not just an enemy, not just an ambush, but God is also revealing to those of you that the enemy has been watching and has been noticing certain things, patterns, and where you were asleep. God is speaking to you in your dream. And what he's doing in your dream, he's showing you exactly what the enemy is planning and how he's trying to attack while you're asleep. And so what is God is doing now while the enemy is going to try to creep in while you're asleep? What I hear in my spirit from God, he's causing you, and the direct word is, wake up. Wake up. That's the word. God is speaking to those of you asleep. God is speaking to those of you that are not aware. Some kind of way, some kind of whatever it is, sleeping pill or whatever it was that put you to sleep. The influence of the spell of the sound, the influence of the spell of the liquid, the influence of the spell of the sounds put you to sleep, rock you to sleep. But as you've been rocked to sleep, God is revealing and speaking. The scripture says that God speaks to a man once, he don't listen. Speak to a man twice, and he don't perceive. So God put him in a deep sleep and sealed his purpose. And see, this sleep is an ambush. See, this sleep is an ambush. See, because the enemy think that you're sleeping natural, that you just was tired and went to sleep. This particular sleep, God caused a deep sleep to fall on you. And the purpose that God caused a deep sleep to fall on you because he knew the enemy was watching. And so when the enemy began to creep, he's going to get caught. He's going to wake you up. So it's my prophetic word. Be encouraged, because God already knew. He has always been a step ahead. Always. So be encouraged, my brothers and sisters. Is that all right? God bless you.